simultaneously. So I'm going to start the recording now, just as a heads up, and this will get posted into our DAO somewhere. I'm not quite sure exactly where we're going to post it up yet, but just to keep track of. And in the future, when I do get the ability to record it directly from Twitter Spaces, then that will make life significantly easier for myself or anyone else that ends up running these things or jumping into the voice chats in the future. So just as a caveat, since this is the first one that we're actually recording, just wanted to push that out there. So give a formal welcome from the Famous Foxes. We had a few things kind of go on this week, which we're pretty excited for. So I'll kind of just dive right into, what's really been going on our side. So kind of starting off, we pushed out some more den teasers. That's what our constant grind is, just going through and creating those, both the interiors, exteriors on that. So that's just, a process that we're just working on. We want to make sure we get them all, kind of correct as best as possible. Since we are doing a little added, detail to each individual one, it just does take up a bit of time. And with that, we've been pushing out lore, additional lore, throughout the weeks, multiple times with them, just to kind of give a little bit more background story to it, which I think a lot of people seem to quite enjoy. So I'll give a shout out to folks that are interested in the lore. We have stopped doing at everyone's for a lot of those other kinds of announcements. We really are only doing at everyone's for, like, I'll say, some of our bigger ticket items, like including our weekly voice chats, or any general announcements that we're pushing out to the group. Will at everyone. But as far as lore is concerned, we did create a new role. So if you go under the join any team area within our Discord, you can add the Lore Fox role, and we ping at Lore Fox whenever we push new lore out, so you get notifications for that. But if you're not interested in it, then you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to add it in there, and you won't get bothered for just the lore side of things. But I personally enjoy it. I think we do quite a good job, kind of building in the lore little by little. It does take some time, and again, we kind of have to finesse and figure out, what's the best direction for each individual gang, because that's kind of our initial phase of lore, is just going out with those kinds of content. So definitely enjoyable and fun. And again, make sure you add in that Lore Fox role if you're interested in checking more of that out. I know we were actually chatting before I started up the recording for the spaces. I might as well mention the other roles that we've added in there, just to kind of remind folks too what they actually do. So the first one we have in there, I've already mentioned Lore Fox. We'll say the second one we have is Raid Fox. So that's going to be for basically social engagement. Right now it's primarily Twitter. I think we're working on getting an Instagram kind of set up as well. I think we've seen kind of a trend come through where NFT projects and people seem to be posting a lot more on Instagram. So I think that's going to be another area that we're going to explore as far as engagement and activity goes. I think that can, increase kind of our general awareness as well, kind of to just a different audience. I think the advantage you have with Instagram is the fact that it's already kind of, picture based and such. I mean, I know there's also, video and such involved there, but I think in general, picture based things between the NFTs, between people with their merch, anything they've gotten printed or mugs created or clothing or anything like that, I think can really kind of spread the brand awareness to other folks that might be, of a NFT mindset, whether it's on the ETH side or Solana side, via Instagram. So I think that'll be one too that most likely will have kind of Raid Fox be pinged for, increasing the engagement on our Instagram side once we're fully fledged, and have that up and running. We then have vibing foxes. So normally I do vibing foxes, if we're going to do just like a general voice chat for something else. The other night, and I see that he's in here, the NFT Hub podcast. We did an interview, I think it was actually yesterday. And so that was one that I pinged vibing foxes for. It's more so, for voice chats. If anybody wants to do a voice chat, if they're interested in chatting, if they're interested in jumping down into our disco channel that we have, our DJ channel, where someone's playing music or just vibing, any particular time. I think was what not this Friday, but last Friday, Brink, right? Like 8 days ago, where we had, I think about 40 people that were just like
Yeah,
raging
that
at
was a
like
Friday.
8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, which 8 o'clock my time. Again, the timing spans all time zones, but where people were just like losing their minds to dubstep and trance, and I mean, I don't even know. We were just whatever
For like
kind of
6 hours.
it was like 6 hours, which was just wild. So vibing foxes, really anything goes, but it's more so to like kind of get people together to kind of just chill and you know enjoy each other's presence at that particular point in time. Then we've got DGen Fox. DGen Fox is mostly used on our alpha channel for something that just pops up that people, find if it's a stealth mint or if it's something, they're doing their own research, or if maybe there's something you want to kind of let people be aware of, even from like a safety side of things. If there's red flags on something or whatnot, usually we'll ping DGen Foxes, and that's more so just for calls, really, for people to like buy something or not buy something, if people have been looking at it for a little while. So um, that's a good one to add in. I don't know how many folks outside of the DAO get benefit from it, because I don't think we really ping that outside of the DAO, but it's at least a way for folks inside the DAO to get pinged, instead of us adding everyone, which we won't do for just general NFT um, things that we find to basically like pile into. And then the last one that we have is GamerFox. So that's for basically if we're just doing any kind of games. We were talking, before we had started the spaces, we did an agar.io earlier today with, I think we got about 20 some people that joined into it. And, we did some prizes. So first place winner, it was for an hour. First place got a transdimensional famous fox, and then second place got a Soul Sleepies, and the third place got a month worth of Discord Nitro. So it's a good time. I mean, we'll probably do it again sometime soon, at least for playing other games, not necessarily for prizes, but just to kind of hang out. We did a crab game the other day, which is kind of a takeoff of Squid Game, which is just a different kind of free, fun thing that's that's quite entertaining to play with. Um, so that's something to kind of keep an eye out for if you're interested. If you're not, again, don't sign up for the role. You won't get it. It looks like we'll see. We have a decent number of people, that had signed up for those kinds of roles, but that just helps us to kind of whittle down, the information. We kind of target it to people specifically versus kind of just adding everyone in our Discord, for just different interactions that people may or may not be interested in helping us out with. So it's worth mentioning, and I'll mention it probably a few more times until I think it's ingrained enough into our culture for people to kind of know to go and grab those roles. Especially the more often we use them, people will kind of see them being used and try to understand what they are and kind of just add them in naturally. Um, the Continuing on with our bigger items, at least that we had mentioned for out earlier this week. So as far as our staking UI and website updates, we did some suggestions that people had. They're more so interested on getting the ranks for foxes that they have staked, instead of having to go back through and figure out what your numbers are and all that fun stuff. So FoxyDAO added, when you hover over a staked fox, on the right hand side, underneath the buttons to claim and unstake, you should see your Fox rank located there. But it's based off of you hovering over to find it. He also added in the TFF and Famous Fox count, so you can see what the total counts are for those underneath of the total amount of foxes staked. And that just kind of helps to keep a general awareness. So we have the total amount and then each individual one that's there. Then you have unclaimed earnings per user as well. And what we also added in, because some people were kind of curious, if you were estimating the total floor, or total minimum value, total minimum value that we have staked, people were kind of also interested in the Solana value for that. So we added that into the UI as well, just to give like an idea of what that really looks like. I think it really kind of paints a bigger picture for us to give an idea of the magnitude of our community and what we currently have, just staked. I mean, that is people, you know what I mean? That's real people that are in the project. It's not, someone that just owns a bunch locked in a vault or something like that. that are staking, earning Foxy every single day for what our next, releases for the utility side of things, and then, ultimately kind of building it up for the future of our utility side. So, very, very awesome to kind of see those figures. I mean, it's kind of insane to me, in all honesty. And, I'm through the moon with the amount of foxes that are staked. I mean, I think if you look at the numbers in general, I mean, it's insane. I think we broke 75% staked of our whole collection of 15,554 pieces. I mean, that's something to be said for our community. I think it's just you know crazy awesome that we have that much of like a backing behind it. I mean, especially knowing we have a dev wallet with some foxes in it and such that we use for prizes and different things that we have. So, I mean, I know where some foxes are that we can't stake because, we have to be able to have them kind of mobile for us to kind of send out to people and such, like us with a guard.io as an example. So just knowing that I'm sure there are some others that are like that. And then if you take into consideration the amount that are listed, which I think is somewhere to the tune of 7%, I mean, a sizable portion of our foxes are being used for what we anticipated them to kind of be used for, which is the staking side of things. So I think that's pretty exciting. um, and I personally am pretty pleased with how that's been going recently. We'll talk a little bit more on like the den side of things a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of just transition through really the announcement that we had this week. I think it's just a good structure for us to kind of go through and chat about. um, the next thing that we did, we had gotten a good amount of feedback from our community as far as kind of some suggestions that people had as far as our marketing goes, as far as our branding goes, and also the den side of things. There's been a lot of questions. We always get a ton of questions too on the Foxy token itself. So what we did is we built out two additional text channels or chat channels in our DAO, one focused on the marketing slash brand side of things, and then the other focused on the Foxy Den mechanics, just so people could give feedback, suggestions, kind of really chat it out with each other, just to try and figure out, what kind of makes the most sense, because we want to make sure that our community is happy with the execution that we do for these things. It's quite challenging, for a project of our magnitude to kind of make sure that we do everything the right way. I mean, I don't think we're going to make 100% of people happy every single step of the way, but our objective is to make sure that a majority of people are happy and that everyone feels at least that their voice is heard at one point or another. And I think that's very important for me personally with our project. So adding in those channels, really gives a different medium for people to be able to talk about it, and it doesn't get drowned out in our other channels. We have a general discussion, which is called the Federation. That's just for just general chat, and everyone can just go in there and pop around and talk about whatever you want. We added in the Alpha chat, which is primarily about calls for other NFTs or coins or anything like that people are interested in trading. And now we've added in these two other text channels, and we also have our suggestions and voting as well. But it's basically as a short summary for what Chris had really wrote down. A lot of foxes want to volunteer their skills for marketing and brand awareness, which we're pretty excited for. We'll reach out to people. I think it's going to be a little bit of a process for us to try and figure out what makes the most sense to kind of move forward with the people that we're interested in helping out. And so that just might take a little bit of time for us to go through. And we've gotten feedback and ideas for our community, which is pretty awesome. Our community kit that we're planning on doing talks about influencers and project collaborations. That's one that, I mean, it's worth mentioning, a little bit about as far as project collaborations goes. It's quite challenging. I mean, we've been sought after, and we've also reached out to people from other projects. It goes without say that most projects that are interested in collaborating with us are projects that haven't minted yet. Everyone wants to get into our radar and essentially leverage our community to try to help sell out their projects. And at the end of the day, unless a project is super innovative, or if we personally talk to their like dev team and we're kind of in a good agreement and understanding with what they're doing. Like, we're not just going to push projects out, in infinitum, or, within our whole Discord, just to help, some other kind of community out. Like, I've gotten, I don't even know how many people with different projects, and all the projects are the same thing, and it just doesn't make sense to kind of push that out as like a collaboration with our brands just to try and help, another project sell out. So it's worth mentioning, from that side of things. But there are other opportunities, especially for projects that were already minted, and they might have a strong community, for us to try and figure out a way of being able to leverage both communities, in form of a collaboration or something like that. It just takes a little bit of time, and we're not the only project that they're talking to as well. So it just kind of comes down to having the right timeline, line up between projects, and making sure that we're on the same page from our expectations for some kind of a collaboration or partnership, for it to be kind of executed fairly in the space. So that is stuff that we are pursuing. Just again, like I mentioned, it does take some time to kind of get something good that makes sense from both parties. And keep the comments and suggestions kind of coming. There's a lot in our announcement that we went through. Infographics, different events that we can do in general. Like I mentioned, Instagram, weekly community art spotlights, pictures, of merch and all that kind of fun stuff in the real world, which I think will tie well into both Twitter, because I know some folks have already done it on Twitter, and definitely Instagram, because I think that's just kind of more so what that platform is used for more often. Um, and some form of like a campaign, like a cross-chain campaign. We've been chatting with projects on the ETH side, trying to do some form of collaboration on the cross-chain side, because I personally have seen a lot of folks start moving over from Ethereum to Solana, and I don't think that's going to slow down at all. So I think that'll be kind of good if we kind of get ahead of the curve, and try to help migrate some of that. I mean, it's fairly straightforward, right? I don't think there's anything earth shattering as far as that migration goes, but it's also, it can be kind of confusing, and the market gets more and more saturated every single day. So I think it makes sense for our project to kind of be someone out there that people can like look at, and at least join into our Discord. Look at the people that are in there, chat up a bit. Mention that you're from whichever Ethereum project that you're coming from, that you're kind of new on the Solana side, and just to try to understand, what tools do people use to find projects, what kind of research do you guys end up doing. Our platforms are different as far as where the exchanges are located and where people primarily buy from. On each side, I think for the most part it's open seas, and on the Solana side, there's I don't even know how many marketplaces there are. I know Foxes alone are listed on about 5 different ones. So it can be very kind of confusing to figure out what makes the most sense, where should I buy from, what's trusted, what's not trusted, how do you verify a collection. I mean, there's just a lot of different bits and pieces to it, and I from the most part, I mean, Foxes have been very, very helpful for anyone that's jumped into our Discord. So I really appreciate that. And I would just say to continue to kind of see those opportunities, and take advantage of them, and just help out all around. I think that's a really good thing, for us to kind of set as an example for our projects, which makes me pretty excited about it. And logos for different Fox traits was suggested. I think that's definitely more interesting, for us to do, because I think that kind of adds another level, to the different gangs that we have within our community. I think that'll kind of bring some people, a little bit closer. For those of you that's kind of band behind your individual attributes that you kind of identify the most with within our Discord, which is pretty fun. Um, and so we dropped out some the image of the interior on the Viking den, which is pretty awesome. And again, that's just an interior room. It's not necessarily like just for the Viking den, but it just has the theme of the Viking to it. So that's one thing like worth mentioning, is like the rooms aren't specific like just for that individual exterior. You can have multiple different rooms for the actual den. So that's just one thing that we're kind of right now creating, like one for one on like each different kind. And then you can kind of like mix and match and all that kind of fun stuff for the interior. So as far as the exteriors goes, that's what we're referring to when we refer to like an actual den. Which then brings me to, our den side of things. So we also pushed out, as part of our second part of our announcement, more information about the launch. And this was something that some people, had questions about, and I've chatted with a few folks on the sidelines too, of kind of trying to get a little bit more information about it. But basically, the model that we're going to be using for our Fox Den minting is a reverse bonded curve that we've posted in our announcements. And we put a date to it as December 18th. So that's our planned date for launching our dens. So that's when folks will be able to utilize their Foxy to its maximum extent right now, will be to mint the dens. The way that'll end up working is we have technically 5 different tiers of dens. So the first tier is basically the one that gets released the earliest. And since the supply is 3,000 dens, what we've done is we've taken 600 dens and allocated them to each individual tier. If that tier does not sell out, then those dens get added to the next tier. So, as an example, the very top tier, will be 15,000 Foxy. So if you want to mint a den, there'll be 600 available at 15,000. And so once it opens up, there's a 20-minute time window where you can go in, you can mint 600, one of the 600 dens that exist in that first tier, and then it will, once 20 minutes are up, then the remaining dens will get added to another 600, and the price will drop to 12,000 Foxy. And basically, that same process just keeps going and going until we get down to tier 5, in which case each den will be 3,000 Foxy, and that will be the total supply of dens would be 3,000 minus whatever has been minted through tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4. So just to kind of keep that in mind for folks that are going to be minting dens, that's the structure to the curve that's on there. Kind of the thinking behind it is the fact that there's a lot of people in the Discord that are interested in getting a den, but we also kind of wanted to keep the supply relatively limited based off of the first off the number of unique holders. I think is the biggest push for us from the famous Fox side of things. So it's just trying to maintain a decent supply so that it doesn't kind of oversaturate the den market itself, and at the same time it still adds a good value for the folks that are currently staking their foxes, whether it's one fox or 100 foxes. The important thing that's worth mentioning is when we pushed out the staking elements, so we're now 10 days into it. If you just had one famous fox and you staked it, then you would have enough Foxy to try to mint, one of the dens at the lowest tier. So that's kind of just the thinking behind the pricing structure for this, is that you really only need one fox once we had released them to save up enough for getting a den when it gets released. But at the end of the day, too, based off the number of folks we have in our community, those that have both famous foxes and trans-dimensional famous foxes, there is a chance that some people won't get a den based off of the minting side of things. So you will be able to trade them on a secondary market that will exist. And so that's just to give you an idea of the way that our system will end up working for the den mint. So there's a little bit more of a write-up on it in the announcement for those of you that are interested in going back and checking it out. But we're definitely excited. We've gotten some good feedback from going on that structure, and I think it's gonna be quite interesting for us to kind of release that as a first way of us minting using the Foxy token. That's obviously not going to be the last time for us doing it. So we're definitely interested once we run through this, to get feedback on it with everything that we're really doing, because I'd be kind of curious to know what some other folks were thinking with how the whole system works for that as well. Hopefully it's good. I'm expecting good things, so we'll kind of see how that works. And one of the other, I guess probably more so like the last thing worth mentioning this week was that we've added in the donation bot through Solstar. So I'd say donation. I more so mean tip bot. So what you can do is you can basically create a way for folks to donate towards you, or to tip you, I should say. I don't know why I keep calling it donations. Um, but you can tip both. There's actually multiple coins you can do. You can tip Solana, and you can also tip Foxy on our server alone, our Discord alone. There's another, I think it's 6 or 7 other tokens that you can tip. And the best resource for that is going to be on Solstar.finance. They have a list of different tokens you can tip on using that bot, and I think it's quite helpful. I already see some folks every once in a while kind of throwing, some Foxy or I don't know if I've seen any Solana tips quite yet in our Discord, but being able to do the Foxy token, I think, is quite helpful, and it'll probably be more and more helpful as we get closer to the minting for the dens. So if folks might be just a little bit shy of being able to mint for whichever tier they're on, if someone else wants to help out, you definitely can do so, and you can also use it, for really anything else that's going on. If someone drops good alpha or something like that, I mean, feel free to go ahead and tip somebody for whatever they're doing. I think it's a really good, healthy way for folks to share within our community. With at least with our utility token, or if you want to also donate Solana, feel free to do that as well. Really is up to you. I don't want to kind of restrict anybody for anything, but I think that will be quite a good addition for our community personally. So I think that's most of the announcements that we were planning on kind of pushing out for this week. At this time, we'll have some additional den sneak peeks this coming up tomorrow. That'll be part of our announcement tomorrow. We we also should be getting our first draft copy. I know it sounds kind of crazy, for our legal memo on Monday. So that'll kind of get pushed around our dev team, with any kind of common suggestions that we want to push back on, and get that kind of finalized for us. And once we get a good structure from our external memo, that'll get pushed out to our FoxyDAO, and with that, we'll have some suggestions around other additional rewards and such that we can build into our ecosystem. So those will go through a vote, and based off of the feedback that we get from our vote, we'll include in the ones that folks are most interested in at this time. And then in the future, if sometime in the future, if folks want us to add in some additional utility rewards, or if there's something else that comes up that we start seeing people wanting more in the space, we'll push it out for another vote, and then kind of try to build that into our reward system as well for our Foxy token. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think there's just so many different opportunities, and there's so many people in our community, and there's so many things that people are more interested in doing, with a utility token within a metaverse, that just make it that much more appealing for us to kind of build that structure out, into our community. So it's one thing I'm pretty excited for seeing within the famous foxes. So I'll kind of pause there. I'm going to jump into our general Fox chat just to see if there's any questions going down, or if anyone's interested, if you want to jump on up, feel free to request to speak, and I'll bring you up for any kinds of questions that you might have for me personally. Just poking through chat right now. And I'm not quite seeing very much here. No, I don't really see many questions in chat. I don't want to hold people back too long. I think Saturday nights. I mean, Saturdays for me recently have been just kind of challenging. I mean, especially with the holiday season coming up, will be quite challenging. So I'll just wanted to give that as a general awareness. I think it's definitely still doable for next Saturday to do a voice chat, but if in the future, if one day seems kind of better than another for myself, I'll just let the community know. Hopefully in as far in advance as possible. That way, everyone's on the same page for when we'll host our next voice chat. So,
I actually do have a question for you, Drax.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brink.
Just regarding, yeah, dens in general, you were talking about with the interiors. So um, maybe there's more information coming out tomorrow from that potentially. But you mentioned to be able to like mix and match interiors versus exteriors. So you could potentially have like the Solana interior with the Captain exterior.
That is correct. Yeah. And it can be more than just one interior room as well. I think we still are trying to figure out the best way to build that the into like the actual den, so that way you can kind
Hmm.
of display it properly. But I think we have to kind of set limits as to how many rooms and such you can have. We were kind of talking about, and again, this is kind of just general, like maybe the ability to be able to kind of upgrade it so you could have like more rooms or something along those lines. But we're just trying to figure out like what's the best way of kind of designing that makes the most sense for the dens.
Sure. So what does that look like for minting as of right now, or is that still part of what's up in the air? Like, so when I mint a den, what do I get?
Yeah, so that's still up in the air.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, as for right now, I mean, you get the exterior as like a bare minimum.
Okay.
As far as like rooms and such are concerned, I think that's part of what uh, what we're thinking about building in is like a little bit more of like the rarity side of things. Is that some might get more rooms than others, like up front. um, but that's something that we're still trying to figure out, like how does that work exactly, and how can we kind of like modify it so that way it kind of works the way that we're expecting it to work when it's actually created and like dropped off to people once they mint it.
Right. That sounds really cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I think it'll be pretty sweet too. I mean, because I think people will like both the interiors and exteriors. So I think there's going to be, an interest in trying to own, essentially both of whatever they want, but more so, the potential to own a lot of the interiors because, there's just a lot of options that you can have for it. I mean, a lot more options you can have for having multiple interior rooms versus just one exterior for your house, or for your den.
Right. I think it'll be interesting too to see based on like everyone kind of has. I think most people that have two or more foxes will always kind of use their favorite one. So
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if people are kind of leaning towards getting a den that fits what their fox's attributes are like, or if they just go based on preference. Because right now, like the Solana one is really cool. I like the space ones, and they obviously don't go with the Centurion theme. But that'll be something I'm looking to is like depending on what I mint, maybe trading it or trying to do something like that,
yeah,
and just kind of mixing and matching too. And that's why I'm excited too for Foxy Swap as well, because it's not a matter of I have to sell it on the market and then take my Solana and then go buy another like the den that I want. I can just potentially use Foxy Swap to say, hey, you have the
exactly.
Centurion and I want that, and then I can trade you this one. So a lot of
Yeah,
application. That's
yeah,
really cool.
exactly. And I think so too with our Foxy swap. I know that wasn't something that I talked about too much on this spaces. I believe I talked a little bit about it last week. But yeah, just having that ability to be able to trade, an NFT for another NFT that you want. I mean, if there's like some addition of Solana on one side or the other, that'll be an option you can select as well. But I think having that, built into our utility, and then for future mints, that being an option, certainly, I find it to be appealing for our community, and I think a lot of people will at least find comfort in the security side of things by being able to do, the swapping using Foxy Swap. So I did see
Yeah,
too. I got another request to pop up here. Not that I don't want to cut you off, but let's see what.
hey, if he's got something better to say than me, I was just going to talk about Foxy Swaps. It's like it's so crazy because that seems, in a sense, almost like a bigger thing, a bigger contribution overall to the
Yeah,
Solana space than just like dens are cool, dens are great. That's going to be something for Foxes specifically to interact with, and we'll see interest. Maybe somebody that doesn't have Fox will want to come in with a den and then maybe get a Fox after, which will be another kind of interesting thing to think about. But with, like I said, Foxy Swap in general is just something that provides value to the space as a whole, regardless if you're a Fox holder or not. And it really is kind of going under the radar. I know there's not a whole lot of information. There's not like a mock-up or a bunch of details around it. It's just kind of like the general idea of it costs 100 Foxy to do it. You can swap NFTs of any type. You can add Solana into it. But just I guess as any of us are going to different discords or we're talking on Twitter, I've been trying to make sure that people are aware that, yeah, it's a lot more than dens that's going to be happening with this whole platform that's going to be there. So people seem really interested when I bring that up, and other people bring it up. They're like, oh, you guys are also doing this. It's like this huge thing that's just kind of flying under the radar. It's just ready to explode as soon as there's a little bit of momentum with that.
Oh yeah, and the nice part about it too, I part of the thinking with Foxy Swap and just using our utility token for it isn't necessarily to say that people have to, buy a Fox and stake it, to get that 100 Foxy a day, or 25 for TFF in order to do, an actual swap on Foxy Swap. I mean, if someone is genuinely interested in doing a trade and they're already part of the Fox community, they can also send out 100 Foxy to someone else, that's interested in using the platform too. So, it really kind of creates like a bit more of like a spreaded ecosystem, within the Solana space, not even just for Fox holders, but just the fact that the tool exists. Because I know there's another platform, y'all, that folks can do swaps for. I don't know if it's existing yet or if it's still in beta, but yeah, I mean, it adds security into a space where we've already personally seen scammers take advantage of people to try and come through to do a trade, and it happens on all levels. Like I've seen it happen, for monkeys in Monkey DAO. Like it happens everywhere. It's not just for a 4 or 5 Solana NFT. It can happen for a 200 plus Solana NFT as well. So it's just good to have an added security, especially to a community like ours, to be able to kind of back it as well as a product that just helps out the space as a whole.
Yeah, it's definitely something to help out, especially as we're starting to see new people in the space that
Yeah.
haven't done NFT stuff before. And just quick on security too. If you guys see anything where someone's trying to trade you on like the Solana DevNet, that's a scam that I've seen
Hmm.
happening quite a bit. They basically use fake Solana tokens on the DevNet, and it looks real, and people have been falling for that. I've seen. So just don't do anything outside of a marketplace right now is my recommendation.
Yeah, it's a solid recommendation. Yeah, the DevNet thing was interesting. I remember seeing Max trolling someone about that. But yeah, the way DevNet works for folks that aren't that familiar with it is just the fact that you can kind of like test out your contract for minting or what have you by using the DevNet, and so people can request fake Solana to use on the DevNet because you want to test it the way you're expecting it to look. You want it to still utilize the tokens from Solana, or Solana actual coins, to like mint with fakely. So it's still, if you're on the DevNet, it will show up and it will look like legitimately like real money. A lot of people that do like fake screenshots and stuff like that with the money they have to sweep the floors with, if it's some ridiculous amount. I mean, sure, there's a chance that some people were able to make that much money, but for the most part, it's probably some pictures of someone on DevNet, just kind of trolling the space. So worth mentioning. But I'm gonna go ahead, Cryptic. You've been patiently waiting. Let's get you up here, see what's going on. All right, Cryptic, what's going on?
Hey, thanks for letting me speak. I just wanted to ask, with the upcoming dens and having 75% of the foxes staked, I mean, do you guys have any projections on where this is going? Like, uh, you said 600 at the 1500 Foxy, and then it's going to be discounted each tier. But, I mean, do you guys expect this to be sold out? And, I mean, what are your projections? Because when I bought my first Fox, I got addicted, so I have 9 now. So, but I'm just like I'm thinking you're going to sell out pretty quick. So I'm wondering, is everyone going to have a chance to get a den who has a Fox? And just I guess I'm just looking for what kind of outlook you guys have.
Yeah, no, a great question. Appreciate it. I mean, I think NFTs in general are addicting. Foxes are no exception to the rules. So I think that's a funny insight from your side. Personally, I mean, I think I think it's kind of mixed as to how quickly I think they will sell out. I personally do think they will sell out. My hope is the structure we have in place makes it fair enough so that folks that have foxes on almost every level have the ability to mint. I think it really just comes down to the I wouldn't even call it a risk reward ratio for some people, but obviously for folks that have more than one fox, if you have, let's say, what, five ish foxes, um, it guarantees you, if you have five foxes to get a den at the highest tier. If you want to risk it and see if you can then get a den on like the next tier down. I mean, you can see how many people own five foxes, on like Solana floor or something like that. So you can kind of gauge, the potential for you to be able to get. Now you can only really see that, I guess, on Solana floor for famous foxes, but still kind of gives you an idea from a numbers perspective as to how many people might be able to buy a fox at that rank. And it kind of, I mean, it's no different than any other mint in my personal opinion. It just is using a different token. So if you're interested in making sure you can get a den and you have the Foxy to afford it at whatever tier is like the highest, or if you want to wait until the next one down, it's purely up to the individual person. I personally think that, I mean, we can't sell out until we hit the last tier, but I think we'll sell out once we hit the last tier. Almost no questions asked. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I guess the only other thing I have, and I don't know if this is going to I don't know if this is in line with the discussion, but with the Twitter following, like I've seen some other projects, they have 20 to 30,000, but followers on Twitter. I'm just curious. I feel like our community is still kind of low on the Twitter following for some reason, because when I joined the community, I was thinking, man, I mean, the community within the Foxes is very strong. I mean, I really enjoy, the Discord and the Twitter is awesome. I gained a bunch of followers, but it seems like it's still somewhat low on the Twitter side for some reason. I'm trying to figure out why. I mean, I've seen a bunch of people, retweet, and Famous Foxes is always in the top for Solana NFTs. I guess I'm just curious, is there any more effort on the Twitter side to get a bigger following? And I guess what's the outlook there too?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's I want to say it's a challenge from like an organic standpoint. I mean, I know personally, I know that a lot of people can buy Twitter accounts, they can buy followers and all that kind of fun stuff. I think the number side of things for me personally, looking at Twitter, um, you know, kind of doesn't mean too much. I think, I mean, obviously, if you've got some kind of, celebrity with millions of followers or something, I mean, there's clearly like a good following to somebody like that. But as far as, numbers in the thousands or tens of thousands, I mean, it can be easily manipulated in the space. I think there are obviously a lot of people that exist that own and purchase NFTs. I think when you look at certain projects, I think it just depends on the sizing of their project, the amount of like what their mint is. I generally look for, if a project has, let's say, like 10,000 pieces, like I'd expect them to have like a natural following of about 2,000 to 3,000 people. So if someone's like creating a project that has 10,000 pieces and they have 50,000 people, just it seems off to me from a certain standpoint. I think, you might have 10,000 eventually. I mean, in a month, maybe 20,000, 30,000. And I think like our following has like been steadily growing. It just hasn't grown at like an exponential point, but we definitely are working on kind of trying to increase our general engagement within the Twitter space. The obvious things that we're trying to avoid are like paid promotions and shit like that, because at the end of the day, I don't think you end up getting good followers from that. I think you just get people that are interested in trying to win like a $5 gift card or whatever people end up winning from giveaways. So that's like just not our approach to grow our following. We'd rather grow it through, people finding out about us or jumping in our community and, chatting up with us. And, we might just get one person at a time, but we're getting, one real person that's interested in NFTs and buying foxes and maybe trying to contribute to the community. So I think it goes a lot further than just like buying, let's say like 1,000 followers or something at a time. So that's the only reason why I think it's just a little bit slower, smaller than other projects that exist right now in
Right.
the space.
Cool. Well, thanks. I appreciate you letting me talk, and I really
Yeah, of
like
course.
this community, and I'm going to keep investing. So this is a really awesome project, and I'm coming from someone that was in NFTs on Ethereum, and I recently got into Solana. And I saw the famous Fox Feds on, I think it was a YouTube video that I looked at, and then I went into the marketplaces, and I was like, wow, I really like these, and they remind me of the Cool Cats.
Mm.
But anyways, they're just awesome, and they're kid friendly, and I think they have a huge audience. So I think this is a blue chip. So I really wish you guys the best of luck. So thank you again for letting me speak.
No, of course, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, Cool Cats is part of the inspiration from our artists that had created these. So, it's definitely worth mentioning. I mean, I think that's going to exist anywhere in the space, as everyone's always going to find some form of, inspiration in either another project that exists in an NFT space or something else that's been created before via cartoon or some things that just exist out there, some things that might have IP related to them that people have to be careful with. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, I appreciate the kind words, and we're definitely happy to have you as part of the Fox fam, and look forward to the future of Foxes and the future of ETH folks joining us in our venture.
absolutely. Well, thank you.
Of course, thank you. Thanks for coming up. All right, let's get M Parker up here. All right, Parker, what's going on?
Hey guys, first just wanted to come on and say thank you. Really kind of echo the last individual on here. Community has been great. Mint was really smooth. Just been enjoying kind of the ride, and I will say that I came in on the mint. I think you guys doubled the initial mint, so just greatly appreciate that, and been a holder since day one. Couple questions for you just on project direction.
Sure.
First, I think, at least for me, it was the first project that had active staking token, which is really cool. Curious on the mating aspect of Foxes and thoughts on kind of timeline and what that looks like.
Yeah, no. I don't mind kind of dropping a little bit of alpha about the mating side at all. It's not completely hashed out. I believe we put a teaser out a while back on like just kind of the general idea from the mating side. So the first thing that we're going to be putting out before mating is our Gen 2. So that's going to be a Gen 2 famous fox. And part of the mating aspect is going to be a blend between famous foxes and the Gen 2 foxes that we create. And within the Gen 2, there are going to be different colored skins that are for foxes. So our Gen 1 is all orange. Gen 2 will have different colors to them. And then the breeding side will have a blend between them. So and there's also going to be some form of mechanic with the attributes between both Gen 1 and Gen 2. We haven't quite hashed all of that out yet. That's most likely going to be early 2022. Early-ish, I'll probably say like maybe within Q1. I don't want to over promise anything. But that's kind of the general direction from like the mating side of things. We haven't figured out from the utilization of using Foxy from the mating side or what that's going to end up looking like. But there's going to be some portion of value that it kind of has to be spent in order to do the mating side of things. And I guess that's probably the most I could give as of right now, just from what we've talked about so far. I mean, we have some other priorities that have gotten pushed up a little bit based off of what the community is interested in, but that's our general direction from the mating side.
Cool. And then one other question just regarding Foxy tokens. Any thoughts around staking with like liquidity pools and kind of moving in that direction in terms of DeFi? I obviously know the Foxy tokens used for all the upcoming mints and any other kind of upgrades objects that are part of the lore, but just curious if you guys are exploring that as well.
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, as of right now, what we've kind of been advised to do essentially is to not put kind of like a dollar value to Foxy. So as far as staking goes, like within a liquidity pool or anything like that, I think we just have to be careful from a project standpoint to make sure it doesn't, kind of create something that's deriving actual money from like a derivative side of things. So, people, aren't necessarily like generating income from, staking a Fox. It's a bit different in the DeFi world to stake for like a node or for a validator, just because that works a lot differently. They're kind of validating transactions and people are paying fees that are kind of just getting pushed back to the folks that are staking onto those individual nodes or validators. So for an NFT, it's a little bit different. I think, I'm kind of curious. I mean, I think within probably the next year, and I know that sounds like a long time, but I think it's a little bit of a complicated process. I think you're going to start seeing more and more projects or NFTs being able to kind of borrow against NFTs, so using them as collateral. And I'm not going to promise anything, but I think if that comes up and there's some ability for us to be able to kind of fund, our treasury or something like that, with being able to kind of stake and get rewards that are kind of built into like our treasury, and people are still getting their Foxy token, that might be something worth exploring. But I don't want to promise anything on that front as of yet. So and then as far as like liquidity pools and such exists, within the Solana NFT space, or within the Solana token space, I should say, as a whole, we aren't providing any liquidity to any liquidity pools. Again, we can't as a project assign a dollar value to a token, especially a utility token, as far as what people are getting as far as rewards concerned. So our stance will always be that one Fox equals one Foxy. There is a secondary market that exists on Dex Lab, so if people want to buy and sell their Foxy, you're more than welcome to. Our project has no ties to the liquidity that exists for doing those swaps. That purely would be based off of a secondary market that's community driven. So we can't stop anyone from doing that. I think that's the beauty of the space in general for cryptocurrency. And it's out there, it exists. If people are interested in buying and selling Foxy tokens, go for it. But as far as our product's concerned, yeah, we can't fund anything that puts a dollar figure value even on the Solana side of things for each individual Foxy token.
Cool. Well, thank you for all of the hard work, and thank you for letting me ask some
Of course.
questions.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming up. I always appreciate hearing from our community. I mean, I appreciate the kind words, and look forward to increasing the value to all our holders that are in here or not in here. So I really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks.
you. I know we're coming up close to the hour now. I'm not sure if anyone else has any questions. I know, just looking through chat again just to see if there's anything in here. But I think it's more so just folks kind of just chatting in general. So yeah, I think I might, unless there's any other questions that exist, I might kind of cut us here. About 5-6 minutes early. And people asking if we can ban Max, I think it's funny. But no, I certainly appreciate everyone taking the time out of their Saturday night to come and join us on here. I'll be posting this sometime within our DAO, so feel free to jump in and check out the audio for this in there. Certainly appreciate everyone coming by. And if you have any general suggestions, throw them in our DAO suggestions. We're definitely interested in hearing back from our community if there's anything that we should look at for improving. I know a lot of folks have put some good suggestions in there, some of which we've already we constantly look in there and we try to improve. One of which being us doing the recording for our spaces as well. So looking forward to pushing that out. And stay safe out there in the NFT space. Keep an eye out for fellow foxes that exist in our area. And once we get Foxy swap, if people are asking for people to be a middleman, just point them right over to that site. Tell them it only costs 100 Foxy to do a swap, and it's better than risking whatever the NFT is that you are potentially trying to swap and may potentially lose. So everyone have a good weekend and have a good Thanksgiving, because I'm sure I'll be chatting with folks in general, but might not be via a voice chat between now